Hey everybody, it's me once again. Thank you. Happy to be here. And one more time, I am test driving another version of Linux. So let me go ahead and lower some windows here. So what we're running on today is a version of Linux called Soplos, Soplos, Soplos Linux. This guy right here. It's Soplos Linux. I'm pronouncing it that way because it says it originates from Spain. It is based off of Debian. It says here it's based on Debian testing, which I'm guessing means, let's see, it says here Debian testing featuring several popular desktop environments. I am running it using the XFCE desktop environment just because with the limited experience that I have running Linux, and this being a computer with limited resources, my understanding is that the XFCE desktop is a little lighter on resources than some of these others. Like it says here, it also you have the option of downloading it with the GNOME desktop, or I'm sorry, some people pronounce it GNOME, the GNOME desktop, or with KDE Plasma. But from my understanding, again, my limited understanding, those desktop environments, they utilize more system resources. They're. I don't want to say this in a way that's going to make XFCE sound like it's like a downgrade or something, because in my opinion, it's not. It works just the way I need it to work. I actually like the XFCE desktop, but KDE Plasma and GNOME, I tend to see those a lot more frequently, and that's probably just because people are running them on more up to date hardware. I guess you could say more capable hardware. Just because I guess the amount of system resources that are used in order to run those desktops environments is probably pretty minimal. But because I'm rocking this on here, let me lower this, and we'll go into my terminal. Oh, XFCE terminal. There we go. I already have one that's set up with my transparency. I love transparencies in the terminal. I know it doesn't really have anything to do with the functionality of the operating system, but I just think it looks cooler. But anyway, let's load up. Let's see, what do we have on here? I think it is probably, I'm going to say fast fetch. Yeah. Because did I have Neo Fetch on here as well? Neo Fetch. Oh, I do. Okay. And look how quickly that loaded. that made this computer look so slow, but it kind of gives you an idea of what I'm working with here. So here we go. That's Soplos Linux Tyron RC1x86 underscore 64. Anyway, so I've got it running the XFCE desktop environment. But as you can see here, let's see if it does it list. Yeah, so here's my CPU. It's an AMD E2 7110. It's an APU, which means it's got some built-in graphics capabilities. And it says here it's got the Radeon R2-R3 graphics, although up here it says it's R2 graphics. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I do know enough to tell you that this processor is old to begin with. It's an older processor. I think even when it was released, it wasn't like the top end of processors that AMD was producing. This is probably very much a budget processor even for the time that it was released. So this kind of gives you an idea of the type of hardware I'm working with, and the reason why when it comes to things, even something as that might not be super impactful like the desktop environment, is still something that I would like the option in picking one that's more lightweight because of the type of system I'm going to be running it on. This is my This is my testing laptop. This is my Distro Hopper number 2. and yeah, that's the reason why I go with XFCE. There are some other lightweight desktop environments. This one I just feel way more comfortable with. If anybody out there's ever run a version of Linux and run the XFCE desktop environment, and especially if you're coming from like the Windows side of things, it seems like most of the Linux distributions that you'll install that have XFCE like pre-configured as one of the default options, it's gonna look very familiar for a Windows user who's coming from, like for me, the last version of Windows that I used actively on a computer was Windows 10. So you'll see like my start, I'll call this my start button, but my start menu is in the bottom left-hand corner, just like it is for traditional Windows users. I know in Windows 11 things kind of migrated to the center, like a dock style rather than the start bar, but this is just what I'm familiar with. So XFCE works really good for me. And then I've got my clock and everything in the bottom right corner, as it should be, is what I want to say. But hey, this is all customizable. You guys can, set it up however you want. But that's just giving you more information than you probably need to know, but it kind of explains why my desktop looks the way that it is. So anyway, getting back to the operating system. So this is Soplos. Let me pull up that web page again. So this is the DistroWatch website, and this is where I picked Soplos from. I just went up here, went to random distribution, and this is the option that it gave me. So again, it does say here that its origin is Spain, and it does say that it's based on Debian. Now, it does say here it's based on Debian's testing. So I guess the version of Debian that, and don't come after me for me speaking wrongly about this is guesswork on my part. But testing, the word testing to me makes me feel almost like it's not finalized, or maybe it's a version of the operating system that where maybe the foundation is solid, like for the most part everything's figured out, but it's maybe one that's designed for testing out new features, new software, new hardware. I don't know, but but it is testing, and you'll find that if you ever choose to use Linux, or if you're a Linux user, there will be other versions. Like I think Debian has like an LTS, which is like a long-term version, which I guess means, in my head again, just trying to figure out what these terms mean. Like foundationally, I guess it's just kind of set, so no major changes, maybe some updates and things like that to try to keep things current. But with a testing, I think there might be a little bit more expectation that maybe not a major change, but something more than a minor change might come your way, which is kind of cool. Maybe you get to experience some of the newer updates or features before it works its way into like an LTS version of that operating system. But anyway, that's just a whole lot of verbal vomit on my end. But let's get into the operating system. So that just gives you some kind of background on like how I discover these operating systems and how I get some information on them. So there's my hardware information. Again, this is the terminal, and the application that I brought up on the screen here that's listing all of this information is called NeoFetch. But for like downloading applications, I think I might have actually downloaded this in the terminal. I'm pretty positive I did. But like with a lot of these distributions, it does come with a like an application store, like a storefront where you just go in and get new applications. So there's an application finder, but I think that's just for applications that you've already installed. Let's see if we can find out where you go to actually install new applications. Let me see if I can just find it just by looking it over. Soplos. So there's the Synaptic Package Manager. I have a feeling, I've been running this for a couple days. I have a feeling that maybe I installed that. I'm just looking to see if there's anything else I can find on here. Maybe I passed it and it was at the very beginning. I don't see the KDE Discover store. If I missed it, I apologize. But there's Synaptic, so I'll go ahead and open that up. Here's what the Synaptic Package Manager looks like running on Soplos. So it's, as far as like a graphical package manager, there's really not much to see when it comes to a Synaptic. What I've liked about it, and again, I've got limited history on anything Linux, but from my limited history with Linux, I can tell you that what I've noticed is that on the versions of Linux that I've either installed Synaptic on or have come with Synaptic pre-installed, the applications, and I pretty much just download the three same applications. I download Kden Live, I download OBS Studio, and I download GIMP. And usually I also install Kpatience. So for applications that are just kind of givens, I'm going to install those just about every time. You know, that being my core my core group of applications, I've found that if I have the Synaptic Package Manager, if I pick an application to download through here, it always seems to just work on whatever operating system I've installed. And I don't know if that's just luck. My whole theory on it was that maybe Synaptic is doing something that some of the other package managers, if I'm using the right term, isn't doing. And my thinking was that maybe somehow it analyzes your system to determine maybe what version of the software you're looking for is going to work best on your setup. And I say that just because I'm pretty positive that this has happened to me, where I installed a version of Linux to my old Distro Hopper, which was an HP 8440p with a Core i5, like really early gen Core i5 processor. And whatever version of Linux I had at the time, it came with some kind of software center, software storefront. And I don't remember exactly what tool it utilized to get the software packages that I was trying to download, but I installed, I want to say it was OBS Studio, and it didn't work. And I was just trying to, I was fiddling around with the package manager, the software center, to see if I could, because I Googled it and I was like, hey, this isn't working on, here's my setup information, you know, all that stuff. I try to feed Google as much information as I can when I'm trying to figure these things out. And I think Google came back to me and said, hey, given your system, the newest version of that software is really not what you want to run. It got rid of some libraries or something that made it so that it would run on the system that you're trying to install it on. What you really need to do is try to install the older version of this package, of this software. And then it gave me like the most current older version of that software that it thought would be best for me to run on the computer, considering the type of computer I had. And I tried going through the default, the pre-installed software manager that came with whatever version of Linux I was running at the time. I just couldn't find any way to downgrade that program. And again, I think it was OBS Studio. I couldn't find a way to downgrade it. And even with Google telling me what version it thought I should be using to get the best results, I just couldn't find a way to get anything but the most current version of OBS. And then I can't remember if it was on that version of Linux or another version, but at some point, yeah, so I don't think it was on that version. I think at some point I had installed a version of Linux that had the Synaptic Package Manager. And I just thought, well, I'm probably going to be stuck in the same situation. I'm going to have to find some alternative to OBS if I want to continue making videos on my old computer. But I installed another version of Linux, and this version came with Synaptic pre-configured. And I went for it. I just went into OBS and installed it, and it just worked. And I thought, at first I thought I was just lucky. I didn't really make any connections, and again, my connections could be totally wrong. This is just based on my experience. But I think later on, I installed a version of Linux. I don't think it had Synaptic on there. It came with some other package manager, but because I had success with the version of OBS Studio that I installed through the Synaptic Package Manager on a different version of Linux, I decided, hey, what if I can just install Synaptic on any version of Linux, so that way if I run into this issue again where I can't get OBS to run because I got the flat pack version, or I'm not sure exactly what was happening, but if I can't find some way to downgrade OBS, maybe I can always install it through Synaptic. And if it didn't come pre-configured, maybe I can find a way to install Synaptic. And it turned out that you can. So on that other version of Linux, I think, again, I didn't have any success getting OBS to work, installing it through whatever package manager came pre-configured on that machine. But I think I just Googled, like, how do I get Synaptic on this thing? And I found out that, you can go into the terminal, this window right here, and, you can type in a command to install the Synaptic Package Manager. I'm again, I'm reaching back into the past. I really should have, made a video right after that, so I got all of my story straight. And there hadn't been time past where maybe I'm getting some things wrong. But I Googled it, can I get Synaptic, the package manager, to run on this machine? And Google said yes, and here's the command. If you want it, just pop this into your terminal. And I did that, and I got Synaptic on that machine. I installed OBS, and if I remember things correctly, it worked. It just worked, and I was like, wow, this is cool. This is a great solution. So anyway, that was my history with running versions of Linux and getting software through Synaptic Package Manager. And that's why I get kind of excited when I see Synaptic is available for me. So getting back to installing things on Synaptic, I'll go ahead and lower the terminal window there. But here I am in the Synaptic Package Manager, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm not even sure about that, but that's how I read it, Synaptic. But yeah, this is how I would install software, and I could just type in for this. I'll just type in Kden Live, and it's going to take a little while because this is a slow computer, and I think other people in the household are on the internet at the same time I am, so of course that's going to slow things down. But you can see my progress bar is making progress, and there we go. I've got Kden Live, and it's got green squares in it, which I think means that it's already installed. But that's how I use Synaptic on Linux operating systems. I think what I usually cover in videos, I need to start writing and scripting these things out. So I apologize if the quality of the content of my videos has not been keeping the same structure. I really need to get back on that. I've been, I guess, mainly more focused on getting the hardware and the software working, and just getting more familiar with that. So I guess we got to take our wins where we can. So I think I have gotten better in that. I dropped the time that I devoted to scripting things out into just getting things to work. And then once I got things to work, I guess I just started hitting record and just recorded. That was the package manager, and I do have, let's see, let's go into, so well, I guess I haven't installed GIMP on this yet, so I could always do a search for that. So there's GIMP right there. So see, what I would do is I would just click the little box, mark it for installation. It's going to tell me, what it's going to download along with it. I just tell it okay. It does give it, although it doesn't include any pictures or anything, it does give you kind of information about the application before you install it. It tells you what it'll do and everything. And then after you select it, I would just go to apply, and then it's going to tell me how many packages it's going to install, how much space will be used, and how much it has to download in order to accomplish that. So I'm going to cancel out of that, but that's just kind of how you would go about. Hopefully I was in frame there. I'm pretty sure I was really far out of frame. I hope I haven't been that way through the whole video. But that's how you would install that particular application on this version of Linux. That's how I would select an application and start the whole installation process for that program and get it onto my computer. So that's how I went through and installed some of these other apps. Like here we'll go in, and I've got Kden Live and OBS Studio on here. The VLC media player, I think that probably came pre-installed on this version of Linux, because I don't remember installing that, but oftentimes I will have to go in and install VLC, and that usually only happens, I don't see, well, it does have Parole media player. Maybe I did install VLC. Usually if I see only one media player and it's something like Parole, then I'll go in and install VLC myself. But sometimes these versions of Linux will come with multiple media players available that are pre-installed. But anyway, I think that kind of covers it. I showed you, like, here's the website distrowatch.com, where I go to pick out the versions of Linux that I'm going to test. So I just click on random distribution usually. And if I like what I see, I'll go ahead and select that and install it. Then I went through and just kind of showed you some information about my system through the terminal. Sometimes the transparency, I'm not sure how well you can see that considering the background, but and I just made it huge. So anyway, I showed you the terminal, and I've got NeoFetch installed, which will show you some of my system information here. I showed you going through and installing applications through the Synaptic Package Manager. So that's just kind of the process I go through, and it's pretty much the same with whatever version of Linux I decide to install on my computer. This is just kind of a quick look at Soplos now, or Soplos. I don't know if the desktop image that I've got here is the one. I don't think this is the one that came pre-configured as part of the installation. Something happened, and again, I'm sure it's either user error on my part, or it's probably got something to do with the system that I'm installing it to, because as I said, this is an older laptop. It's running a processor that I'd never even heard of before, but I got a great deal on this laptop. So this is my Distro Hopper number 2 for now. But it's running it's a Dell Inspiron 15 5000 series, rocking this AMD E2 processor. But it's enough, from what I can tell, for me to be able to install whatever version of Linux I've come across so far, get OBS installed, and record a video and edit it through Kden Live. So anyway, yeah, I think I'm just rambling at this point. I'm just going to go ahead and cut the video here, because I think I've included everything I wanted to. But if you guys are watching, I appreciate it a lot. Just be sure to like, comment, subscribe, And if you do comment, just make a recommendation, either what you maybe some improvements that you'd like to see, or if there's a version of Linux that you guys would like to see me try testing out just to see if it'll run again. You've got an idea of what type of system I'm going to install it on, so it's probably not going to do well with anything that's I don't want to say a resource hog, but something that's going to require a lot more from the resources that I have to throw at it, considering the machine that I'm going to install it on. And I have on this machine, I'm going to try to stick to things that are, and again, I'm going to start throwing out terms that I'm not super familiar with, but running what is it, the X11, what is that called, like the display system. You're going to see, if you do decide, or if you've already started, going through your Linux journey, is what I hear a lot of people use, the term that a lot of people use. But if you've been using Linux, or if you decide to start using Linux, you're going to see things discussed like, you'll hear kernel used a lot. That's like the core system of Linux. You'll hear about distributions, like this is Soplos, which is Debian based, I believe. But let me pull it up again here. Debian, yeah. So you'll hear distribution. So Soplos is a distribution based off of Debian, which is another distribution, I guess. There's like these families of distributions. Lots of them are based off of Debian. But you'll also hear of distributions that are based off of Arch Linux, and I've tried some of those. Some that are based off of Red Hat / Fedora, which I believe you can kind of group together, because from my understanding, Red Hat is Fedora. Fedora's Red Hat's product, for lack of a better term. It's almost like a spin-off. I don't know if Red Hat's like the corporate side and Fedora's like the community side, but you'll hear those three used a lot. You'll hear a lot of Debian, Arch, Fedora, and occasionally you'll hear things like Slackware and Gentoo. I have tried some Slackware-based distributions, or at least one. Have not tried any Gentoo. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And as far as the other three, which I guess would be considered like the main three, I've tried distributions that are based on all three of those. So I started out with Bazite, which is based on Fedora. I have used a few different Arch-based distributions, and as far as Debian, that seems, in my experience anyway, that seems to be the most popular, like, base distribution to build your distribution from, to build a distribution from. So I've tried many distributions that are based off of Debian. And even with that, I guess, kind of maybe be considered the core versions of Linux. Even then, you'll get distributions that are based off of distributions that are based off of those four. So, almost like not necessarily a spin, because they're like separate. They're separate operating systems or separate distributions, but are like for instance, you'll see, from my understanding, Ubuntu, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, I think at its core is like a Debian-based distribution, but it's almost like it's modified. It's also used as like a starting point, almost its own core for other distributions. So you will find distributions that you can install that will say that they're Ubuntu based, which is kind of odd because if those are Ubuntu based and Ubuntu is based off Debian, why aren't they just considered Debian based? But maybe Ubuntu modifies it enough or makes enough changes at like a core level that anything that's Ubuntu based, they share enough between these other Ubuntu based spin-offs, whatever you want to call them, distributions, that they're like their own separate category. So I guess at the core of the core, I think they're Debian, but there's like an outer core that's Ubuntu Debian, and then you've got your, whatever's left surrounding the core is the distribution. Anyway, it can get confusing, and I don't want to overwhelm you. I don't even know if I can because I'm so new to this that again, and I apologize if I offend anybody by using the wrong terminology. That's not the purpose of these videos. I'm not here to offend anybody. Again, I'm just a guy that's excited to find something that I can use that means that I can still give life to these older systems that were, I guess, considered like throwaway machines. I don't see them in that same sense. I grew up with computers as part of my household. Our first computer, and you have heard me say this if you watched any of my previous videos, was a Commodore VIC-20, a computer that was an all-in-one unit that you hooked up to your TV set, but you could type in some BASIC, I think is the programming language. It came with a booklet with stuff that you could do, and you could get it to, on your TV. You hooked it up to your TV, and on your TV screen, you could get it to do things. You could get your name to bounce up and down the screen. So, and I was amazed by that at the time, and I was like, in my early elementary days. So we're talking like first grade. I was getting my name to bounce across the TV screen, and I thought it was the coolest thing. So you're listening to somebody who's coming from that background, thinking that was amazing at the time when I saw that and I could do that, and that was my name bouncing across our family TV screen. To this, I think this machine is amazing. I graduated from the VIC-20 to the Commodore 64 to finally getting and this wasn't my personal computer, this was the family's computer, but getting a 386 with Windows 3.1. And when we got that in my household, again, I just thought that machine was incredible. So yeah, that's just the background that I come from. So like the fact that I can create videos on this laptop, a laptop computer. My first computers were, even the Commodore 64 was bigger than this laptop is, or at least it was chunkier. But yeah, I come from that background, so being able to do things like this, record this video, hook up this microphone, and install a new operating system and see what it can do, and all this other stuff. That's just the background that I'm coming from, and I just tell you that to kind of explain the view that I have. So I understand that a lot of the people who are watching this are probably watching this on a computer that's way more capable than this laptop is. And I just want to express my excitement because I do have computers that are more powerful than this. So if it will do this on this computer, with the computers that I have that could do more, it will do even more. And right now, I'm just kind of playing around and having fun. I understand that Linux is kind of a community, although there are, I don't want to use the word tribes, but or clans or whatever you want to call them, but there are groups within this, overall umbrella group of Linux that exist. And I'm by distro hopping, I am hopping out in and out of each one of your groups. So pardon me while I'm here. I think all of the stuff that you guys have is great, and I'm just trying to share my excitement with whoever wants to hear it. And I think I've probably over-explained myself at this point. So anyway, that's where I'm going to end this video. If you liked it, be sure to hit the thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment, and make a recommendation on what you think I should try next. And who knows, your recommendation might just end up being my next video. Oh, I just clicked on the wrong terminal. I just popped up the terminal. This is the terminal that came pre-installed, and this is the terminal that I installed myself that I knew how to make this transparency with. But anyway, I was closing out the video. So peace, and I'll see you in the next one.